like a chill pill. I'm focusing on real still. I'm here with no fear, and I have a clear tip. Anger, come join me. I'm here, come chill. My mind like a ship. I use my anchor skills.
Welcome to the Here in the Now podcast. My name is JG Larochette, and I'm the founder and director of Mindful Life Project. Welcome to the podcast for educators and wellness. As a former classroom teacher, as someone who now leads an organization that's really trying to innovate on how to create mental and emotional wellness for students, teachers, educators, staff, and families, we feel it's very important that you, the teacher, the educator, have access and resource to mental and emotional health practices. So if you're here for wellness and mindfulness, you're in the right place. At every episode, we're going to have a little conversation about whatever might be coming up that I'm seeing in education, plus some special guests. We'll be able to really create this community together. So again, welcome to Here in the Now. So I don't know about you. It's August, right? This time of year brings a lot of emotions. You might already have started school or shortly will be starting school. And I taught from 2004 to 2012, and I just recall those days of both excitement for the new year, but also how quick did summer just go by, right? That essence of like not enough time to digest, metabolize, reset, readjust, that we really need in education, right? People think, oh, you have so much time off. Well, really that time off is a time to really get that whole body, mind, and heart to be ready to hold space again with so many of our young people, right? So what might be arising for us in this period of the year is a lot of the anticipation, the anxiety. Who are my students going to be? What's the school culture going to feel like? We're in the middle of year 3 of the pandemic, its effect on education, on our lives, right? So whatever you're feeling, whatever thoughts, emotions are arising, the key for our community here is to welcome it, to not judge it, to think that something's wrong with our thoughts or our emotions, or to fear those emotions, right? So a little bit about myself, if you don't know me, I was a classroom teacher here in Richmond, California. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can see 3 of my former students. If you're hearing me on audio, you'll see a picture. There's a picture behind me that I'm mentioning that has 3 of the students doing mindfulness on the playground. So I really loved trying to create space, safe space, right? Mentally and emotional safe space for young people. And I want to create that culture of like lifelong learning, ownership and agency, whole child, whole community. And I did that in many ways, and I loved it. It was truly just the most spectacular years in so many ways of teaching 3rd, 4th, 5th grade here in Richmond, California, where Mindful Life Project was started. But over the years of creating that space, holding space, being in that space, and then seeing a lot of my young people go on and really not feel that same connection to class, to teacher, to community belonging. Far too many of my students would come back saying, I just haven't felt that in a long time. I haven't felt it since your classroom, or, this other teacher was great, but, right, or the schools don't have this. I burned out. Anxiety and depression took over my life. And it was a mixture of things, right? I don't place it just on burning out in education, but I think all of us, and probably those listening right now, we're people of service. We think about others before we think about ourselves. We're going hard to be of service. And when you do that, it's a beautiful, magical space. But if you do it without the self-care, without the practices to really help us fill ourselves up in a daily experience of like, okay, I've taken care of my mind, body, and heart, so I can come back tomorrow morning and have that presence again, right? It takes so much presence. People don't really understand it. To hold space, if you're an elementary school teacher for 25 to 35 kids, if you're a middle high school teacher, hundreds of kids a day, right? That creating space and that holding space takes a lot of presence. And we only can have a certain amount in the daily experience that we can kind of provide. And if we don't have practices, if we don't have the reset, it can burn us out. So just check in with yourself right now. It's August, right? Are you feeling the energy of August like you did maybe in the first few years of your teaching? Or are you feeling like it's already October, right? Like you already sense a little bit of that burnout, and we haven't even really fully started, some of us, right? But check in with that and see like the thoughts and the emotions that come with that, and then see what layers there might be to that, right? Are we kind of been a lot in the past thinking mind with the last kind of few months of thinking about last year, or how hard this future mind, the future thinking might be? right? How are we in relationship to those thoughts? Are we kind of dragged along with those thoughts? Are we taken on this ride where we're feeling like we're getting pulled left and right, past, future, strong emotions arising, right? Future emotions, past emotions, present emotions. So here in this community, this podcast is really for you to let that go, to see the non-judgmental, compassionate lens, which is mindfulness, right? Aware of what's here right now without needing it to be different. For me, when I felt anxious, I wanted to feel anything but that. And I pushed it away. I resisted it. I did all that I could to mask it. And then it took me over. It engulfed my whole being, right? So we're here to really understand that being an educator, if you're a principal, if you're a teacher, if you're a teacher assistant, any placement in our education system takes a really courageous act. And it takes the courageous act of starting to create a different way of being, a different way of changing our system so that mental and emotional health are the foundation experience of anyone in the ecosystem. I'm not talking about just students, right? That means that the adults in our schools and our districts, that mental and emotional health is really the priority and the foundation, so that we can then be in the physiological side of our brain, in the prefrontal cortex, growing, activating that part of the brain that makes us human, versus being stuck in the stress response, right? The cortisol and the adrenaline and the amygdala firing, right? So we know that we're wired for stress. We know that we have a negative bias. These are all parts of the human being that is who we are. But we also know now that if we invest in mental and emotional well-being and self-care and mindfulness and physical activity and connecting, expressing ourselves in healthy ways, if it's art, movement, right, dance, that we can literally rewire the brain. And I'm living proof of that. 2011, deep anxiety, depression, couldn't sleep, couldn't function, barely show up to work. When I did show up to work, it was not a pretty sight. And then I was like, oh, wait, what's this thing called mindfulness? Let me practice. Brought to my third graders. And now 10 years later, we're serving over 40,000 students this coming year, right? So we say that as a place to let's revolutionize by connecting. If you're here in the Bay Area, if you're on the East Coast, right? If you're in the middle of this country, or if you're in a country that's not the United States, if we start to connect this consciousness and recreate the education system to be that place we deserve and our young people deserve, we can start really creating something unique, something different. But that means a lot of us cultivating that conscious care for ourselves and starting to create community together and create community wherever we're at. So I'm just curious, as you're kind of hearing me right now, is the mind more in the future, right? Is it more in the past? Is it present? We're in Here in the Now podcast, where we're revolutionizing education by really cultivating presence for ourselves so we can be of best service to those that we serve, our young folks, as well as creating a strong connection and community where we will be cultivating awareness through compassion beyond just our classrooms, beyond our schools, in our communities. So as always, we're going to be focusing on a mindful skill. There's 7 mindful skills that we really infuse in our curriculum, right? We serve young folks from TK all the way to 8th grade. We create programming and services for high schools as well. We do a lot of professional development and trainings for self-care for adults, be it educators or families. So the 7 skills: mindful breathing, mindful listening, heartfulness, body awareness, mindful emotions, mindful thinking, and gratitude. 7 skills. How many skills? Yeah, 7 skills. Those skills are cultivated in our mindful sits so we can really cultivate that compassionate awareness. And also, when we focus attention on one thing at a time, we're building the mental muscle to be more in the present moment. And if our stress response comes up, if our body feels dysregulated, our emotions take over, we can minimize how long it takes us into the future or past and the strong emotions take over our brain. We can slowly but surely create more space and time between that stimuli and our internal external reaction to be really in our prefrontal cortex and respond versus react. So we do those practices in stillness, but we use those practices beyond our stillness, right? It's like if we're doing anything wonderfully, art, music, athletics, right? That you have to practice the technique. So then in the moment where it's showtime or game time, we can be really ready to use that skill. So today we're going to be focusing on mindful breathing. We're going to focus on some heartfulness. So again, mindfulness is paying attention on purpose to the present moment without judgment. The key is that non-judgment. So we're focusing awareness, we're in the present moment. That's fantastic. The moment we get distracted, a thought takes us away, an emotion takes over, a sound grabs our attention. That moment we notice that we got distracted, that's the mindful magic moment, because that's the new neuroplasticity, that's the new connections you're making to interrupt the distraction or the carrying away, right? The dragging we talked about earlier of thoughts and emotions. And we came back and we celebrate that. It's like a mental push-up. When we notice distraction, we come back, and that will really start to increase the activity, the strength, the connection, and start to actually find refuge in ourselves. And that's what the real practice is about. Welcoming whatever experience we're having with a loving, compassionate heart. So focus on breath. We'll get distracted, no problem. Come back to breath. Then we'll focus on compassion, heartfulness. So here we're going to really focus on how do we bring compassion to ourselves, fill our buckets up first, and then how do we bring compassion, heartfulness to others? Because as you know, as an educator, you're kind of, how do we say, let's just say the bucket has to be pretty full because your young people and those you work with are enduring a lot. There's a lot going on in this human experience. So we got to build up our heartfulness, and then we can be able to provide it to others. So let's do it. Let's get into our first mindful sit in the Here and Now podcast, again, where we're revolutionizing wellness for educators, connecting and making a community of practice. So we'll do it the Mindful Life Project way. Feel free to move around a second. Been sitting a long time today. Always know that your body can tell you kind of the temperature of your experience. So don't be, don't worry if you feel like you have to move the body, stretch out in front of kids. Like teach them that their body is something to listen to. So moving around a little bit, and then find stillness. And as you find that comfortable position, we're going to do a little call and response if you'd like. This is how we do it with our students. So go ahead and enjoy responding after me. When I say I've got my feet on the floor, you'll just repeat after me. I'll give some more guidance. You repeat the words after me until I say close your eyes, and you can repeat at the same volume. All right. So let's go the MLP way. Repeat after me. I've got my feet on the floor. I've got my spine in a line. I've got my hands in my lap and my heart to the sky. And then when I say close your eyes, you can repeat the same volume. All right. Now close your eyes. Now close your eyes. Now close your eyes. And the invitation to close our eyes is always there, so we can really work on this inner experience, this inner connection. But if that doesn't feel comfortable, soft gaze below is always available. We'll start with listening to the sound of the bell. We'll use a little mindful listening there, so just staying with sound as long as we can as a pathway and entry to the present moment. So as you come into your practice, if this is the first time you've ever done a mindful sit or the 1000th time, right? This is the practice of cultivating awareness in the here and now without judgment. Some of the keys are a compassionate lens, non-judgmental lens, a welcoming, an arriving. So just check in. Notice your contact points. Notice your feet on the ground, the weight, gravity. Bring attention to your sit bones, the chair. Again, the contact with the chair, if that's where you're seated. And bring attention to your hands. Wherever your hands are, whatever they're touching. Are they tight? Are they loose? Maybe a little temperature at the fingertips. And again, as we'll be focusing attention on one human experience at a time, the mind will get distracted. Just remember there's the non-judgment piece that's so critical. So if we do get distracted, instead of judging that, wishing it were different, we actually welcome it, notice it, and then just gently try again. And the good news is mindfulness can only be done in the here and the now. So once it's the past, you let it go. The future isn't here yet, so no need to chase it. Just gently arriving right here, right now. So just gently now bringing attention to your breath. So this isn't about clearing the mind or changing anything. It's really just about this lens by which we see what's happening right here. So we just notice the breath as it is. No need to change it, adjust it. Just like you're watching your favorite show or listening to your favorite music, just being with it. Just noticing how it is. Maybe you feel the breath at the belly, the rise and fall, or the chest, expansion and contraction. Or some be at the nose, the cooler air on the in, warmer air on the out. Those are our three anchor spots. So just like a boat, a ship needs an anchor to stay in one place with strong currents, strong waves. Our anchor spot can get us right back in the present moment. Wherever you feel the breath the strongest right now, belly, chest, nose, just land your attention gently like a butterfly in a flower right there. Breathing in, we know we're breathing in. Breathing out, we know we're breathing out. And again, thoughts, emotions, sounds, all experiences are like clouds in the sky. They come and they go. There's no need to wish they weren't here. We just practice the non-judgment and gently try again. Breathing in and breathing out, and just watching and following and tracking. And now just check the quality of attention. If you've been distracted a lot of the time, can you bring compassion to that? Can you bring heartfulness to that? Can you just say it's okay to be distracted? Nothing is wrong. Nothing is right. Just the way the habit of the mind is. And again, mindfulness is like a flashlight because a flashlight just points light right there. It doesn't have an opinion or decision if it's right or wrong. So in the same essence, can we just normalize that the mind will do something? We'll just gently come back and try again. There might be sounds right now that pass by that would take me into that. And then instead of following the sound and having thoughts connected in a huge long train of association, I just gently come back to the breath. Now the offering is, if you'd like to place a hand or 2 hands on your heart, I'm going to move our attention from mindful breathing to heartfulness. So connecting to that lived experience of wherever we are, if we're preschool starting soon, or if school already started and it's the first couple weeks, just build up some of that compassion, heartfulness of self. You are exactly who you need to be. You deserve wellness. You deserve to feel a deep sense of belonging. And this practice will just kind of go through cycles of sentences, either the ones I share or others you choose to, with an essence of truth to it, an essence of deep connection to reality. So feel free to use the sentences I'm providing to practice this heartfulness, or add ones that better fit you. So in your mind, just say, may I be happy. May I be healthy in mind, body, and heart. May I be filled with peace. May I be filled with love. May I find ease. So you can cycle through those words or add new ones. I'll try one more time with you. May I be happy. May I be healthy in mind, body, and heart. May I be filled with peace. May I be filled with love. May I find deep ease. You can cycle a couple more times with those, or the ones you're choosing. And just if you for a second think, oh, but I don't know if I deserve that or if I can do that. Meet that with compassion, no judgment. And then we'll close the practice by maybe thinking of someone you love, or a group of people, maybe your students, your community, your family. Just put them in your heart space, in the emotional landscape of your heart right now. And may they be happy. May they be healthy. May they be filled with peace. May they be filled with love. May they find deep ease. And we'll close with the sound of the bell. Just stay with it as long as you can. And then gently, if you're ready, you can stretch or open your eyes and come back into the space. But the transition is what we're looking for. Mindfulness is not just when we're seated. It's actually more about using the seated to transition to being in full loving presence as much as possible. So check in. How's the mind feel after practice? Similar, different, more thoughts, less thoughts, judgment thoughts? How's the heartscape? Feeling strong emotions, lighter emotions, a little more equanimity? Is there judgment there? Remember, no judgment. And then the body. What's going on with the body? You feel a little heavier, a little more like molasses? Do you feel a little tighter, right? It's not about feeling a certain way. It's not about being a certain way. It's actually the opposite. It's about noticing what's there without any need for it to be different. So I hope today's session, this podcast today, here in the now with JG Larochette, Mindful Life Project, has proved beneficial to you. Let's take this practice we just cultivated and start embedding it in our days, right? So it's the breath and heartfulness. We'll do the other skills. But when we feel that we're overwhelmed, let's just take a pause. Intentionally go sit and bring in the breath for a little while without judgment, or send some compassion in the moment. Just like, okay, there's some suffering going on, right? And that's okay. I bring heartfulness to it versus judgment and wishing it were different. At the end of the day, just remember, all the educators out there, you are doing so much in such a hard time, and you deserve to be nourished. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to be resourced. And we build this community together. So here in the now is a community of practice for mindfulness and compassion for educators across wherever we're at. Let's grow this community. See you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Do a sit, take a chill pill. I'm focusing, I'm real still. I'm here with no fear, and I have a clear tip. Anger, come join me. I'm here, come chill. My mind like a ship. I use my anchor skills.